Hi, how are you doing? Hello and welcome to this topic, which is going to be all about surrender. So, a little bit of backstory about me, who I am, and why I'm so passionate about talking about this topic. My name's Lauren Macdonald, and I am a stage 4 cancer patient. I sometimes like to say I'm a stage 4 cancer survivor, but as we all know, once you're a stage 4 patient, we're just living in that state of not knowing if the cancer will ever come back, whether there may indeed be cancer cells still in our bodies. I'm classed as NED or no evidence of disease, and I have been for the last 4 years. So I'm in a really, really fortunate place. And yeah, I've been on this massive journey over the last 7 years. So I was first diagnosed when I was 29 in 2014, and I've just had to go through stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, so kind of the tumours progressing, the multiple surgeries, the treatment, and yeah, to get to where I am now, which is off treatment and back living my life, back at work. But as we all know, whenever we go through something massive, be it cancer or be it another life challenge, be it something to do with COVID, there's just so much that can happen to us in our lives. And it's really, really shattering in lots of ways, because we go from being quite naive in the sense that we think that life is relatively, we can control it in lots of ways. If we work hard at school, X, Y, and Z will happen. And we often have a bit of a plan of how our lives are going to pan out. I know myself, when I was kind of 28, 29, I thought, by 30, I might be married, I might be having children, I might own my own home. And of course, cancer arrived into my life and blew it all up, and none of that happened. And I spent a lot of time really trying to cling on to that dream in a way, or at least maybe not a dream, but a bit of a societal expectation of what was going to come next in the next chapter of my life. And it has taken me a long time to get to a point of total surrender with what is. And that's not to say occasionally I don't get really angry and frustrated that cancer came flying into my life and just shattered all my plans. But I am at a place of acceptance where I am, kind of trusting that what will be, that I'm being guided to whatever path is next for me. And obviously I'm so fortunate because I am NED or no evidence of disease. On at least my scans, at least, I've got no cancer in my body. And yet, I think for anyone who's gone through a cancer experience, whatever stage we are, or indeed not even cancer, just maybe another challenging experience, we get out the other side quite often, and it's really hard to kind of reorientate yourself to life again, because the life you had is no longer there. It doesn't look the same, it doesn't feel the same. We're not the same because we've had this big experience. And quite often we're expected just to pick up where we were. It might be in our work or in our family life or with friends, and yet we feel different. And sometimes we feel different in a positive way. We may have grown. There's that process of post-traumatic growth that we can go through. But sometimes we are still quite shut down, and I know that was the case for me. So I work as a doctor. I've had a medical education. I've also trained in psychology before medicine, and yet it took for me to have my own experience of cancer to really understand concepts that I wasn't taught about at school or at university. And this is the idea that when we go through a traumatic experience, our nervous system is affected. And you may well have heard of the autonomic nervous system. And this is the way that we have, our nervous system is basically split up into 2 divisions. So we have the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic. And the sympathetic is all about kind of fighting, fleeing, running away from danger. It gets our heart rate pumping, our blood pressure up. And then the parasympathetic is really our rest and digest. It's the system that takes over when we've just eaten a meal, or when we're going to sleep, when we're resting, when we're meditating. And the problem is when we go through a trauma, we quite often go straight into that sympathetic kind of drive. We need that drive to help us. We go into survival mode. And the issue is that we can sometimes get stuck in it. And not only do we get stuck in that, but we can actually go through such a big trauma, such a big life experience, that it's we almost become a bit shut down and frozen and numb, so it can become fight, flight, freeze. And that's definitely what happened to me when I went through my stage 4 cancer experience. I felt very numb. I felt like I wasn't really engaging in life. I always used to think, oh, am I going to have some kind of breakdown here? Is that I feel like I'm on the brink of something, like I'm going to just give up. But I couldn't even find the energy to kind of have that, because I couldn't feel properly and I was so numb. And it was only looking back that I now understand that what I was going through was really the result of a traumatic experience. And a trauma can be described as anything that makes you disconnect from yourself or makes you feel very constricted and shut down. So it's not necessarily that the event itself is the trauma, it's how you feel inside as a result of that trauma. And for some people, maybe they get through life experiences, these big, difficult life experiences without experiencing trauma. But for a lot of us, especially if we've had cancer, we have gone through a trauma. And first of all, we just need to recognise that, because it's only by recognising it and bringing our self-awareness to it that we can start to then soothe ourselves, heal ourselves, and actually start to live again on the other side and start to thrive. And that doesn't matter, it can be when you are NED, or it can also be when you have cancer, because when I still had active tumours, I started to realise what was happening to me, and I started to get educated on this trauma, which I'd not really heard much about despite going through my medical training. And there's people like Peter Levine who speaks about somatic experiencing, which is this idea of us needing to come back into our bodies to heal from trauma. But when we are shut down, when we've gone through hard experiences, although we want to connect with our nervous system, it can actually be really hard to do so. So there's quite a few ways that we can do that. And this is really all about surrendering to what is. And letting go of control, letting go of what's happened to us, just really sitting with our experience and where we are at the moment. So in terms of connecting back with our nervous system, we want to help our nervous system feel safe. And we do that through the body. So we can do body practices like yoga, just movement. I've recently got into Qigong, which is a really wonderful, lovely way to slow down and connect with the body. And also just shaking it out. So dancing and just literally standing up and shaking is really good to kind of get rid of the trauma out of our bodies. And then if we come to the mind, we can use our practices like meditation, journaling, just being outside in nature. I love to ground, so taking off my shoes and getting my feet into the soil and the grass. And then on a more spiritual level, this is really where we can actively surrender. So surrender isn't a process of giving up. Surrender is a process of making the decision to give up our power, give up our control to something bigger than ourselves. And on the other side of surrender is where we find our peace and our connection to something bigger than ourselves, but also to our true selves, because we can kind of check back in with ourselves and see how we're really feeling. So surrender for me is the ultimate kind of the final frontier in the healing journey from any life challenge. And we can do it while we still have the illness. We can do it while we're in the middle of the challenge. We can do it on the other side of the challenge. But really at some point we want to get to a point of surrender, because it's such an illusion that we have control of our lives. As you know, I'm sure you will have gone through your own challenging life experiences. And when we cling on, when we're desperate to have that control over our lives, it's actually really exhausting, and it's not good for our nervous system. Our physiology doesn't enjoy it. We feel stressed, the cortisol, adrenaline, everything starts pumping out. So when we can actually just come to that point of surrender, and like I said, we do that through the nervous system, through connecting with our bodies and just letting our bodies feel safer, even if things seem really challenging. I just invite you to let your body know that in that moment, in that particular moment, right now, we are safe. And just connect to your breath and surrender to what is. So it's a really active, not passive process, surrendering. And that's all I really want to say on it today. I could talk about this for ages, but we've got limited time. So I just invite you for the rest of the day to see where you can surrender and give up a little bit of control in your life. It might be something really simple. Just see if you can invite in a little bit of acceptance of what is, and trusting that the universe is working in your favour, and even though if it doesn't sometimes feel like it. And just come back to your body, hand on your heart, and breathe and surrender into what is. Okay, lovely to be with you today, and take care.